The place of Nirvana, or Mechanus, is a place of balance and absolute order. It is equally hot and cold, equally light and dark, and made of equal parts solid and liquid. The chief inhabitants of this plane are known as Modrons and live in a rigid caste system under the absolute rule of Primus, the One and the Prime. Primus is first seen in 1st edition, a greater deity and the absolute uncontested ruler of Mechanus, where he rules over millions of Modrons. Primus is the ruler of all the planes of Nirvana. Primus, and only Primus alone, sets the order, writes the laws, and establishes the rules and regulations for which the entire universe of D&D is set upon. All others carry out the plans and obey the rules of Primus. Failure to meet this powerful creature's standards means a return to the energy pool of which he resides at best as a Modron. The caste system of Mechanus which Primus sets is very complex, yet very lawful. It starts all the way at a Monodrone, a base Modron, goes up through Duodrone, Tridone, all the way up to Pentadrone, all as base. Then there are many levels of Hierarch Modrons, all the way up to a Secundus, the rank right before the One in the Prime, Primus. As the ranks grow higher, their numbers grow fewer. There are millions and millions of Monodrones, but only 4 Secundi, and of course, only 1 Prime. Primus is a huge being who rises from the energy pool in the central part of his great tower at the center of the plane. Although the Prime One may also appear as a normal human, though in giant form, Primus's hands are unseen, the right swathed in rainbow bright lights and the left clouded in inky darkness. Creatures struck by the light hand are teleported to Arcadia, and those struck by the left are sent to Acheron, representing the neutrality of Primus, the good and the evil, the light and the dark. 1st edition sets up Primus very nicely as the undisputed ruler of Mechanus, who understands all of the workings, laws, and rules that not only set Mechanus, but all the rest of the planes. He's a very mysterious being, but unlike other deities, they add a small caveat for Primus. When describing the Secundi, it is told that they live in harmony with one another, the 4 of them always 4, as they are viceroys of the 4 quarters of Nirvana. And they always live in harmony with each other, save for the time when a new Primus must be chosen, implying that unlike a lot of other deities in D&D, Primus is not a being, but a position, implying that Primus, the One and the Prime, is not infallible, and that he can die. In 2nd edition, the Modrons and all of Mechanus are the subject of a module called Dead Gods, though Primus barely appears in it. The reason for this is due to another deity, Orcus. Orcus has been through a lot before this adventure begins, and he has already died himself and come back, calling himself Tenebris. And we are giving the interaction between the One in the Prime and Tenebris, or Orcus. As he cleverly sneaks into Mechanus, he finds the One in the Prime in the center of the city, residing in his energy pool. As he moves to Primus, Primus can tell immediately who he is, though he does not know how he is alive. As Primus is almost all-knowing in Mechanus and understands all of the workings, he already knows how this interaction will play out. He does not attempt to signal to any of his guards or Secundi for aid. He sees how this interaction will go down, so he speaks with Orcus, letting Orcus believe he has the better of him. There is even a moment of surprise as Orcus lets him know that he is looking for something and plans to use his Modrons to look for it. Primus sends out his Modrons on a very strict schedule, hundreds and hundreds of years apart. Nobody knows what this great Modron marches for except for the One in the Prime, but Orcus has an idea of how he can use it, searching for his lost item, the Wand of Orcus. He uses his most powerful ability, the Last Word, which is a god killer. This is not the first or the last time you will see Orcus use this. And with that, Primus dies instantly, and Orcus thinks he has won as he assumes the position of the One and the Prime, with Primus dead. Though we quickly see throughout this module what it does to Orcus, the pure being of chaos. He immediately gains the powers of Primus, and almost no Modrons are even wise to the fact that he has been replaced, causing as little turmoil as possible. And throughout the story, we see Orcus change. He believed he would get the abilities of Primus, the powers, the use of the Modrons for the Great March to find his wand, but soon he finds himself thinking differently, and we get a glimpse into the mind of this creature near the end of the module. It is said that his experience as Primus had changed him in ways he could never have expected. In many ways, he was Primus for the duration of his time. He knew he must now leave, and he worried even about who would become the Primus after him. Would there be chaos? Would there be turmoil and the promotion of the next Secundi? And despite his chaotic and evil nature, he could not refuse the order of rightful succession pounding in his brain. When he sent the Modrons on their march out of their natural cycle, he'd forced them to go against their nature, and for this he felt guilty. He felt wrong for not obeying the laws of Mechanus. And even in his last moments as the One in the Prime, he reflected on the abilities that he would lose, all of the information, the knowledge of the Infinity Web, and his ability to correlate data so efficiently. He would miss being Primus. And as he left, a more lawful being than when he had started, without his wand, the Modrons returned to almost normal, with a quick succession where Secundus took the place of Primus, the One in the Prime, and quickly organized everything back to normal. Orcus more changed in the land of Mechanus, and the One in the Prime back in its rightful place. It is also said that the death of Primus does not break the link in Modron society like we've seen here. The vacancy is filled rather quickly. However, during this process we can glean something about the Modron society, as it usually creates turmoil, since without a Primus, chaos is allowed to enter into the perfection of Modron society, and the first act of a new Primus is to return order to its race. So for this short period of time, we can see the Modrons are not a lawful people, naturally. There are rogue Modrons who are chaotic, that can escape Mechanus during these times, and have. Instead, the one who is lawful, law incarnate, is Primus, and he exerts his will over millions and millions of these Modrons, making them the most lawful and machine-like race in all of D&D. And so at the end of the story of the Dead Gods, we can see what really happened. Although it looks like Orcus walked in, killed Primus, took what he wanted, controlled his race, and left in disarray, quite the opposite really happened. Primus died very quietly, and let Orcus assume the position. And besides forcing the march out early, Orcus eventually ran the Modrons exactly like Primus would, as he was Primus for this time. Then, as it changed him greatly over time, he left, and the next Primus swiftly returned, as little damage done to the Modron society as possible. In fact, as the module states, if the PCs ever choose to see Primus for themselves in this time, and are able to navigate to the Great Modron Cathedral, a new Primus will already be in place. This Primus has nothing to say about its death, or anything that happened during this time, and there is absolutely no distinguishing factor between this Primus and the last. They can learn nothing from it. In 3rd edition, we see a little bit of the motivation of why Primus would do something like this. His sole concern is for the Modrons. It does not send avatars to other planes, or take part in the normal bickering and wars that every single other plane or power does. It does keep track of events on other planes, though it rarely interferes unless there is a direct threat, in which case Primus acts swiftly and before the enemy has time to react. It devotes almost all of its energy to perfecting and protecting Mechanus and its inhabitants. In fact, Primus may die more than we believe, as it is almost unnoticeable whenever a Secundus gets promoted to fill his role, and they immediately gain the powers of the old Primus. This makes Primus and Mechanus different from any other society or plane in D&D with a deity. The death of someone like Corellon or Asmodeus would absolutely throw their planes into chaos. Their leader gone and a lot of the power of that plane gone, susceptible to being attacked by the wars that they constantly involve themselves in. Primus and Mechanus, which has been around since the beginning of time, are unending. And even though there are slight perceived changes, the idea of the being Primus has never changed. And it cannot die, for if you kill the actual form of one, another will rise in its place. Though Primus is referred to like a singular person most of the time. In 5th edition, we see a lot of the influence of Primus in what he's up to on other planes and interacting with other gods. Mechanus is always moving, great large gears that they live on but also power the machines, great machines that only Primus can understand and no other deity even can look in and understand what these devices accomplish. We see a little bit of Primus's power and how he executes law over the rest of the universe. The first event birthed an entire race of being. Long ago, Primus created a giant geometrically complex stone imbued with the power of law. He then cast it adrift in Limbo, a plane of pure chaos, believing that the stone would bring order to that plane and halt the spread of chaos to other planes. As the stone's power grew, it became possible for creatures with ordered minds, such as Modrons and Githzerai, to create enclaves in Limbo. However, this had an unforeseen side effect, as the chaotic energy absorbed by the stone spawned the horrors that came to be known as Slotty, and sages referred to Primus's massive creation as the spawning stone for this reason. The Slotty then wiped out every last Modron enclave in Limbo, and as utter creatures of chaos, Slotty loathed Modrons and attacked them on sight, although Modrons do not do the same to Slotty. This might be seen as a blunder and one of Primus's mistakes, creatures from the outside wondering why he would birth a race of chaos. Nonetheless, Primus stands by his creation and either doesn't perceive the Slotty as threats or chooses to ignore them. Though this is the tale of scholars, and it is certainly possible Primus saw all of this going down, as it is unlike Primus to make a mistake, and just as he has one hand in light, he has the other in darkness. Complete neutrality, and he keeps the balance of the universe going on, though it is definitely possible that he chose to create this race as a direct counter to his own Modrons, though it is impossible to truly speculate on the will and vision of the One in the Prime. Primus has also had arguably the largest influence on one of the most iconic gods of D&D, Asmodeus. Primus is the being who resided over Asmodeus's case that the angels brought against him. And in the end, Primus ordered Asmodeus to carry the Ruby Rod, Asmodeus' mighty iconic artifact, that would guarantee his adherence to law. Primus' decision is the reason that all devils are lawful, and the rod grants Asmodeus and his underlings the right to enter their iconic contracts with mortals for their souls. And the rod also enforces these contracts that can unleash an inescapable punishment upon any devil that breaches it. This is the power that Primus has, controlling entire deities and civilizations with a single item forged by him. Primus not only enforces these contracts, but he also has a need to increase order in the multiverse in accordance with laws beyond the comprehension of mortal minds. And so Primus allows people to create contracts under his jurisdiction. If any of these are broke, a merit is sent after them, and it will resort to lethal force if a contract calls for it, or if the contract is fully broken. These merits are beings of incredible power, and they will come endlessly after you on any plane that you may reside or try to hide, so that you follow the will and directive of the One in the Prime. And so Primus' story continues on, where other deities have died, been revived, died for good, been absorbed. Primus is the most consistent and lawful deity in all of Dungeons and Dragons. And it is because of the way that the Modron society is structured. They are more a collective being headed by Primus than a race of individuals. For this reason, there will always be a Primus, and not even the most powerful deity could take down the One in the Prime or all that he has built. Law will always be in the universe, and it will always be harshly enforced by the immortal ruler of Mechanus. Thank you so much everyone for watching. Please like, comment, subscribe, anything you can do to help the channel out. Delving into the Modrons, I really actually thought this was interesting, so let me know if you want me to make a Modron video, a Great Modron March video, or a video on General and Mechanus. Thanks for watching everyone.